Given the latest development, the Code of Conduct Tribunal has ruled that it will proceed with this, with the proceedings. Your perspective on where this is going?
Well, I believe I have to be a bit careful because this is sub judice. I think that's a legal term. However, there was something that was our legal researcher brought up something to my knowledge yesterday. Section 3 of the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Acts, Chapter C15, says that because the whole trial of the Chief Justice is predicated on the fact that he forgot something in his asset declaration form. And the functions of the Bureau with respect to that, when somebody forgets something, then it's provided the person makes a written admission that he forgot that there's such a breach, then he simply writes it up, admits that I have this, and the specific act says no reference to the tribunal is necessary. It's there in the law. I was showing this yesterday. So it makes me wonder, why are we still proceeding with this if the law is very clear on that? And it also makes me wonder why the halts for trial initially, and then the sudden eagerness to accelerate proceedings. It boils down to a rule of law thing. If we are going to keep bending the law or breaking the law in order to achieve predetermined objectives, then it doesn't bode well for anything. And one of the important things that is needed for an economy to move forward is that sense of rule of law. And this trial of Justice Onnoghen does not bode well at all for rule of law.
And it's important to emphasize why this is important, as in the trial of the Chief Justice. Many are expecting that given how the elections have played out, many elections will be contested in courts, and of course we know that everything, so to speak, leads to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court and so forth. Your perspective on how this will impact the outcomes of these legal proceedings?
Well, if they're expecting that the acting Chief Justice is going to play ball, I don't know if that's the case, because that would send an even bigger message. If so, the suspicion or the allegation by quite a number of people is that the president wanted the acting Chief Justice in place because he would be more disposed to getting a more favorable committee, as it were, to when trial comes around. We've come to that stage where definitely, I mean, the opposition candidate in the presidential election, Atiku Abubakar, has insisted that he's going to contest this in court. There's been a lot of pressure on him not to accept the result and not to contest it. He's refused and he's going ahead. So clearly this thing will get to the Supreme Court. If this gives credence to some of the suspicions and conspiracies that were mooted when the assault, as it were, on the Chief Justice began. And remember that when that happened, it happened in record time. The accusation was made on a Wednesday, and by Friday, the Code of Conduct Tribunal had said that they were going to try him. And then within a few weeks, he was suddenly suspended. It's important to point out that the suspension has no, the law has no knowledge of the manner in which the suspension happened. So all of these things it's quite worrying. It gives the impression that the judiciary can be toyed with in order to achieve predetermined ends. Again, I always like to link all of this back to the economy. We don't want a situation where investors or people who play in the economy believe that the judiciary can be manipulated for predetermined ends, because what that would lead to ultimately is capital flight.
Of course, looking back at these elections, many have argued that the quality of the elections, regardless of the outcome, begs for a lot more electoral reforms. And I want to get your perspective on the importance of these legal proceedings. So, for instance, the opposition party has said that they will take this matter to court, and we expect that we'll see similar moves across the various states, given the outcome of the gubernatorial elections. How important do you think it is for these matters to get to court to drive electoral reforms?
Very vital. It's, this is, for me, for example, Mr. Atiku going to court, it's not about whether he wins or loses. It's about the fact that we have to acknowledge that something fundamentally went wrong, and that thing needs to be acknowledged. So a favorite example I want to use is the outgoing governor of Imo State, who is hoping to get into the Senate, Rochas Okorocha, did something.
Very interesting dynamics with that case.
He basically hijacked by force of arms the resident electoral commissioner in the state, who was forced to call him as the winner under duress. Now, INEC has refused to issue a certificate of return to Rochas, and Rochas' lawyers are pointing out that this thing, what INEC is doing, is unknown to the law. So that needs to be sorted out. You can't allow brigandage, which is essentially what happened in Imo, to persist. But the law has to make a provision.
Right.
So there has to be a judgment on that, so that we set a precedent
that foresees that
scenario. So if there's a judgment in favor of Rochas, then we know that, okay, fine, going forward, anybody who is running for political office should better get his talk so that he can kidnap the resident electoral commissioner. Or if the judgment goes against Mr. Rochas, then we know that, okay, fine, this is unacceptable behavior. These things have to be sorted out. And there are many things that happened during this election that the law was kind of silent on. So what happened was people found the loopholes and are trying to exploit them. Those loopholes need to be closed. And I think that's a good thing for the country, even though going through it is not very funny, but it's actually good for all of us in the long term.
No, I think